What is good, everyone? Welcome to the channel, and this week I'm going to be talking about giving up my American citizenship and becoming Japanese. Let's find out why. Before I continue, I'd like you to please think about subscribing to the channel. I put out a new video about Japanese society, life, and culture every single Friday. And also hit the like button because that will get my video out to a larger audience. All right, let's get going. The most recent famous Japanese person to give up their citizenship to another country was Osaka Naomi, the professional tennis player. And she reached the age where she had to make a decision to either keep her US citizenship through her father or Japanese citizenship through her mother. You see, Japan does not allow dual citizenship. If you're a child, you can still keep both of them, but at the age of 21, you have to make a decision, one or the other, and officially revoke the one that you don't plan to keep. You kind of think this is a policy that's Japan shooting itself in the foot, considering that Japan famously has a falling population, so possibly forcing some of its citizens out because of this rule doesn't seem all that smart. And although I respect Osaka for her decision, you know, she made it freely and probably was the right decision for her, I'm a little disappointed because if she had decided to become American and not remain Japanese, it might have pushed the needle in Japan a little bit, might have nudged officialdom to maybe consider rethinking the no dual citizenship thing. I don't know, it might have helped, but in the end, that's not what she chose. So now in my case, because I live and work in Japan and essentially my entire life is here, it might make sense for me to become a Japanese citizen, but I think twice about that because it would mean having to revoke my US citizenship. Sure, I could maybe try to keep the US citizenship on the side, but I don't think that would work for a reason I'll get into in a moment. Becoming a Japanese citizen would obviously have some advantages. Most commonly cited would be I'd be able to vote then. And while that's great, I think there's some other hidden advantages that are even more important for me. One is better protection from the legal system. You see, Japan's legal system is famously pretty draconian. They have a 99% conviction rate, and if you're a foreigner, it's even worse. Not that I'm really worried about committing any crimes, or even so much being accused of something falsely. I mean, although that can happen. I'm thinking more along the lines of civil suits, like a dispute with a neighbor, or I don't know, whatever could come up in those regards, like an accident, traffic accident, something like that. And as a foreigner, I would probably end up holding the short end of the stick. And this has been pretty well written. There's plenty of cases where this is proven. And if you want to look him up, the writer Colin P.A. Jones, so that's Colin, middle initials P.A. Jones, who writes for the Japan Times and is actually a foreign-born Japanese lawyer. He's written extensively how foreigners kind of don't fare very well whenever they butt up against the legal system here. And of course, if you do get put in jail for something, once you're let out, you'll be deported immediately, regardless of whether you've made a life here or not. So that's certainly a reason to consider becoming Japanese. Another reason to consider becoming Japanese is related to what's happened in the past year, which is Japan was the only major nation that decided it was going to close its borders to foreign residents of the country. Everyone banned tourists and business travelers and that sort of thing because of the pandemic. But if I had been outside of Japan in spring of 2020, I would not have been able to return, despite the fact that my job is here, My house and mortgage is here, my family is here, my bank accounts, like my entire life. I am a resident, this is my home. So if I hadn't come back, hadn't been able to have the right to sojourn, as it's called, maybe I would have lost my job, lost the home because I couldn't pay the mortgage. Who knows what would have happened. Would not have been good, and it would have been a headache, whatever went down. And so that's another thing, like, well, if I'm really going to make my life here, the possibility exists that that will happen again in the future in some capacity. Japan might arbitrarily decide we're not going to let foreigners in because of something. Of course, there's some lighter reasons to want to be a citizen. You know, the look on people's face when I haul out my Japanese passport at the airport, for one. That would be kind of interesting, maybe. Or maybe no one would bat an eyelash, I don't know. You might be asking, well, how easy or difficult is it to take Japanese citizenship anyways? There's not really anything ridiculously onerous that you have to do. The main requirement is that you have the Japanese language ability to claim citizenship. And that involves paperwork that basically amounts to a reading and writing test and an interview in Japanese. So if you have the Japanese level necessary and want to go through the paperwork, you can become Japanese. There's some other obvious requirements like residency and maybe a spouse or a certain amount of time spent in the country, but nothing that's particularly strange or odd about becoming a citizen in Japan. Now, aside from the reasons to become a Japanese citizen, there actually is a reason to revoke American citizenship. And that is because America, speaking of countries that do strange things, or the only major country that does this, America is the only major country that forces its citizens abroad to report their tax income, and if you are over a certain threshold, you actually owe tax in the United States. Basically double taxation. You pay the tax in your home country and you pay money to Uncle Sam as well. I think it's famously said that Eritrea, I think, is the only other country in the world that does this, and I admit I don't know where that is. So that's not the only thing, because honestly speaking, I don't reach the threshold where I would actually have to owe anything in taxes to the United States. I mean, I could someday, but at this point, that's not an issue. However, I am actually barred from a lot of investment vehicles while I'm in Japan. You see, a lot of investments like pension funds and such will have some kind of tax preferred or tax discount, and almost died there in the intersection, and the tax discount won't be honored by the US government, so there's not much point in getting into that investment because any tax benefit you might have gotten will be nullified because the US government won't honor it. Not to mention, I'm actually barred from entering certain investments, period, because of the reporting or the qualifications you need, and it's just the banks and institutions in Japan, or many other countries even, just won't even allow you get involved. You know, you tell them you're American, they're like, oh, we can't actually sell you this product. So basically I'm limited to funding my retirement by hoping for the government pension, saving, and investing will pretty much have to be done in US investing accounts. Not that that's a bad thing, but you know, it involves money transfers and it's a bigger pain in the butt. Like if I pass away, and how does my wife access stuff from America? It's not the greatest situation to be in. It'd be nicer to have all things considered my retirement accounts in Japan, because this is where I live. Okay, the big question. I've been explaining all of this. Am I actually going to go through with it? This is what my family who's watching this is waiting for. Well, my family can rest easy for the time being. You see, I don't believe I really have the Japanese ability to become a citizen. and certainly not the reading ability for that part of it. I might make it through the interview. Would I in the future? Maybe. Maybe if I'm making more income and I'm starting to trip that tax liability, it would certainly be a consideration. And honestly, what passport I have in my pocket isn't going to change who I am. So I know that that might upset some people, but there's always going to be people in Japan who say, well, you're not allowed to complain or have comments about Japan because you're not Japanese. And at the same time, there'll be people in the States who say, you're not allowed to comment on politics or life in the States because you don't live there. Oh, great. I guess I can't comment or have an opinion on anything. Utter nonsense. Absolutely nonsense. So I'm going to continue to have an opinion on both places, and that will continue whether I am a citizen of the US, a citizen of Japan, or secretly both. I would never do that because, again, legally speaking, if I got into some kind of legal trouble and it came to light, the lawyer did their homework and discovered that I had never actually renounced my American citizenship, probably my Japanese citizenship would just be thrown away. Osaka Naomi, well, she had to declare it because she's famous. Everyone knew she had the dual citizenship. She wasn't going to get away with that one. All right, let me know what you think. Do you think Japan should have dual citizenship, or do you actually agree with the idea that you should commit to one single country? Are you a foreign citizen in Japan? Would you ever consider Japanese citizenship? You know, join the conversation, make some comments below, and I'm happy to respond to any comments and questions. Still a small channel, so I can pretty much respond to everyone. Thank you very, very much for watching this video. If you would like, please hit the subscribe button so you can get more content, and definitely smash that like button because that will help get my content out to the larger YouTube audience. Thanks for watching this one, and I will catch you next week. Peace.